Welcome aboard the Shipshape podcast, your ultimate destination for marine wisdom and expertise. Our skilled crew, comprised of top boating journalists and experts, is committed to delivering informative and captivating content week after week. We're eager to connect with and learn from our fellow mariners, and we encourage you to share our podcast with your friends. Remember, word of mouth is our lifeblood, and if you enjoy an episode, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. By doing so, you're helping us forge a robust community of mariners who can learn, collaborate, and exchange their experiences out on the water.
Welcome to the Shipshape podcast. Today's guest is Electric Eddy Denison, an accomplished yacht broker from the iconic Denison family. Eddy is a driving force with marine electric technology. So let's explore the future of environmentally friendly yachting. Your two co-hosts today are Meryl Schrett. I'm a live aboard on a Tashing Toshiba 36 in Boston, Massachusetts, and T.
Hey guys, this is Talha Bhatti. Welcome to the Shipshape podcast. Today on the show we have Electric Eddy, and we're going to learn a lot about electric propulsion from him and lots of other exciting things about living on the ocean, being on the ocean. So welcome to the show, Eddy.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on. Love this topic. Love talking about this and educating people. What I think the future of boating is, and obviously other people. You know, a little bit of background. Obviously, with the Denison family, I grew up basically thrust into the business, so to speak. I didn't really have a choice. Being part of this family. My grandfather started Broward Marine. My father started Denison Marine and was one of the first to really put jet drives in yachts and make these big yachts very performance-based, and obviously get under that magical 7-foot draft for the Bahamas with the jet drive. So, we've been around the traditional yachts, we've been around the high-performance yachts, and it's just a business that, like I said, we were born and raised into it. We were very fortunate to have one of the biggest yachting names as our grandfather and my father and my two uncles. And so that's how we started down here. And basically, I was a little bit of the black sheep of the family. I decided to be a golf instructor before getting into the boat business. But unfortunately, I sneezed one day, giving a golf lesson, and ruptured 4 discs in my back, plus another 6. So I had to give that career up and joined my brother's company, Denison Yachting, back in 2013 to start selling boats, brokerage boats, and things of that nature.
From what I remember from Bob's interview, he had also said he'd had his arm twisted a little, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult and I know this will sound arrogant, and and our family is very humble, I assure you, but it's like, we grew up as almost like the Kennedys of Fort Lauderdale, the yachting world, so to speak. So in a family like that, where everyone from your grandmother has been a super influential person to your mom, to your uncles, we didn't really have a choice. I know my brother mentioned we spent a lot of days and weekends at the shipyard sweeping and learning how to categorize PVC pipes, and basically did almost everything up except for like welding by the time we were like 10. So, it was a different lifestyle for sure, but it was so fun because as a kid, you don't realize what you're around and the kind of people you're around and the kind of work that's going around. And, not till you're much older do you reflect on it, but it was a very special childhood for sure.
Nice.
Well, I definitely do want to bring it back about how, the vast majority of people that we interview on the podcast, they don't necessarily choose to go into the marine world. They just kind of fall into it. And I guess, hell, you sneezed into it.
Yeah. Yeah. When my brother took over Denison Yachting, it was originally called Denison Yacht Sales that my dad started, he wanted me to join. And I just was a little apprehensive. I've seen what the yachting world can do to people. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But originally, I just wanted to do something different. Like I said, I was just a different kid, a little bit more loud and kind of crazy. And so I thought, to be a little different and go a different route, but it kept calling my name. And, after the back injury, it was like, all right, what do I do now? And, my brother had established the company. I mean, he's changed the industry forever, the way he did, internet marketing and all that. So it was kind of a no-brainer to go work for my brother. He's, my role model. He's my best friend and someone I look up to business-wise and everything. So it seemed like a natural progression to be the last one to finally join the family business, so to speak.
Nice. And so you stayed with Denison Yachts for how long then?
For about a decade, 10 or 11 years.
In those 10 years, though, you'd seen every boat imaginable, I imagine.
Yes, from the boats that we built, I mean, I've sold Trumpies from 1956, power boats, catamarans, center console. So I've been able to see all the boats. And typically as a broker, you try to focus on a type of boat, a type of vessel. Some people are center console specialists, sport fish specialists, super yacht specialists. But fortunate for me, I got to see all kinds of different types of boats, all different kinds of different systems. And so for me, it was easy to basically be able to sell kind of a lot of different boats, including sailboats. So I think it's good to have a good, range of expertise. Obviously, there's a ton of boats and no one's an expert on everything. But, growing up in the industry, it was easy for me to kind of pick and choose some boats and different areas to go after.
Because lots of people will say go for a niche, right? And did you end up doing that?
So I got into my niche I started creating for myself as Electric Eddy about a year and a half ago, because like I said, I was approached to do a startup company with electric boats and help get that company started. And then after that was done, it was time for me to move on. And I ended up after my brother sold the company to One Water, I ended up leaving Denison to go to Yacht Sales International because they focus primarily on Green Line, Alva yachts, which are basically the only, I know they're silent out there as well, but Green Line for itself is the only mass-produced, fully electric hybrid propulsion system boat. And I just saw the future coming, personally with the cars, with electric batteries, the climate, the government, everything is going in that direction. So I thought it'd be a good idea to start focusing on electric boats, electric propulsion, hybrid propulsion systems, just because it's not for everybody, obviously, but it's something that is happening. It's something that's here. We can't change it. And so it's like you go with the flow or you're going to get rolled over.
And do you have a technical background? Like how technical is the sort of side that you've gone into?
Me personally, if you gave me a set of tools, I would probably look at you like, what in the world are those? Sadly, I'm not very mechanically inclined with the wrench, so to speak. But fortunately, a lot of the stuff it's a lot less complicated than people think. I mean, obviously the battery management system and some other type of software stuff is extremely technical. But when you get down to it, electric boats and the hybrid propulsion systems really eliminate a lot of things and simplify things. So it's not as bad as one would think. I know people get scared with boats and other things, but one of the best transitions when I started, focusing on electric boats was we started getting a lot of clients that owned Teslas, Lucids, that were like, will never own a boat in my life. And then I started working with X-Shore, who makes a 27-foot center console, all electric boat out of Sweden, as well as a 6-meter boat. And so basically I started seeing the simplicity of those type of boats and how they can change the environment, how it can change boating. And that's kind of how I started getting into this, especially following X-Shore. They to me are the premier group that's, as far as technology goes, they are really ahead of the game. And that's kind of the joy I had in kind of immersing myself into something new. But as far as technology goes, no, I'm not a technical person by any means.
Tell me a little bit more about this simplicity, because like what I remember, for example, and this might have been like Musk himself sort of saying this in one of his presentations, is that there's, so like in a Tesla, there's no pumps to change and there's no oil to change and no this to change and no that to change. And there's these electric motors and they'll last X hours and then you change them. Yeah.
Right.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, and that's what I meant to say earlier is when we got approached by Tesla owners or people that were like, hey, I never want to buy a boat because they're so confusing. But with X-Shore, you plug it in just like Tesla and that's it. I mean, it is that simple. And people started to realize, oh, wait a second, this is pretty easy. This is not so complicated. I'm not changing oil. I'm not changing filters. And, with the electric boats, that's the biggest factor is you eliminate a ton of maintenance. On these bigger boats, like the green lines, for example, you eliminate the need for a generator, which, as boaters know, that's your biggest problem. You're the most maintenance, it's always running, smelly, vibrations. And so a lot of these companies have figured a way to include electric motors to replace the generators. So Green Line, for example, will put their electric motors on the shafts. So on the hybrid system, as the diesel engines are going and the shaft is turning, it's making your electric motor into like a 40 kilowatt generator, basically. So you eliminate the need of one of your most sought after mechanical problems, the generator, and it allows you to enjoy boating quietly, without fumes, without smells, vibrations, and really enjoy the water and the experience.
You alluded to this slightly, but how does the advent of all of these environmentally friendly engines and technology impact the larger yachting industry? And how do you see that kind of changing over the next few years?
Everything to me is like trickle down with yachting. Everything starts at the big boys, the Lursons, the Fedship, Dom and Keeson. Everything starts there and trickles down. So the more that these bigger boats, these, once you start talking, meters instead of feet, then you're in a different category. But as these bigger manufacturers started putting in electric propulsion systems and even some hydrogen cell propulsion systems, as the customers were starting to be a little bit more aware of the climate change and of the environment, the customers basically forced these manufacturers to give them an alternative to just regular diesel engines or gas engines. So what the electric boat market really does is simplify these things. I had a great analogy of everyone wants us, say the industry, the government, everyone wants like this big snowball to come rolling down the hill with change. Like, oh, we fixed everything, here it is. But that's just impossible. So what needs to happen and what is happening now is everyone's adding a little bit to this ball, right? So as this ball goes downhill, everyone's adding a little bit of this, the ball gets bigger, gets more momentum. So a lot of companies are working together, sharing information, because at the end of the day, we want to use boats more. We don't want to kill the environment. We don't want to cause more damage, especially on a boat that is a luxury item. Most of these boats, they're not necessary. I know people might hate me saying that, but they are like an additional toy or an additional investment. And so people wanted to make sure that they're doing the right thing with the environment. And, electric boats is going to be the future, especially the way cars have come into fruition with basically a lot of Teslas and Lucids on the streets now. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that these bigger boats start using these propulsion systems, it's going to trickle down. Like I said, Green Line has produced, I believe, 1,000 boats since 2008. And they're the only ones that are mass producing these types of systems. And in fact, next year, they're going to eliminate the option for a diesel, just a straight traditional diesel motor system. So it's going to either be all electric or a hybrid electric system. And to me, the hybrid electric system is the best way to go, because you're getting the best of both worlds. Yes, you're not fully electric, but at the same time, we're not there as far as technology goes for batteries, for power inputs and stuff, where a lot of these boats can go greater distances fully electric. But I think a lot of people have started to realize when you're going from the dock to the ocean, you're not going to be able to go fast. You have wake zones. It's just pointless. So you keep your electric motors on. You're not burning any diesel through the motors. It's all quiet. It's a great boating experience. And then once you get out to the open water and want to go to the Bahamas or go somewhere fast, you can kick in your regular diesels. They will get you there at 27 knots, 30 knots, depending on your engine package. And then they charge the batteries while you're using the diesel motors. And then once you get there, you shut everything off. And basically you're running on solar and your battery power, and you can enjoy all your systems in peace and quiet without any rumbling or smells or anything like that.
Now, I got to ask, you see, I had a career in residential solar at one point. And, obviously when you're dealing with those type of clientele, the thing that was always surprising was that people who were about the environment seemingly never got solar, but the people that were financially conscious, they did get solar. And then when me and T did a solar job on a catamaran. I mean, the selling point for him was that he wanted to just be able to sail nonstop and never have to dock anywhere. Now, for the boats that you've been selling and working with, what are the selling points, or what have you seen people like really kind of enticed by?
So the biggest thing is the experience, the ambiance, just being able, like my dad says, when you come in on an electric boat, it's like you're coming in on the Holy Spirit. You know, you're quiet. Everyone's kind of looking, hey man, I think your engine's off. You know, like what's wrong with your boat? Like, no, I'm all electric. I'm coming in. I don't need my diesel motors to propel. And it's just, again, the maintenance cost. You know, you don't have the generator. You don't have the oil changes. You don't have the filter changes. You don't have a lot of these yearly maintenances anymore. And in fact, and I know everyone gets scared about the batteries. Oh my gosh, if the battery burns out, it's $18,000. And that's obviously expensive. But technology is at the point now where Greenline, for example, and basically all these electric boats, they have battery management systems where you can even see and monitor each individual cell on the battery. So if you do have a battery that has a bad cell and you monitor it and don't operate or air and burn it out, you can actually replace each individual cell for like $500 a piece instead of having to replace like an $18,000 battery. And in fact, we have, in Greenlines, are great loop boats. A lot of people will buy them, do the loop, and then sell the boat. That's like, hey, we want to do this bucket list. It's the perfect boat to do it. And so people realize they're spending less money with the regular maintenance on these big trips. In fact, we had a 39 Greenline at the Miami Boat Show that we never plugged in to shore power at all for 5 days. And ran all the systems, air conditionings, everything, and then
nice.
And so it gives you the opportunity where, you know, if you dock, you don't have to plug in. Yes, you can. Or, hey, you know what? Let's just anchor offshore. We can run all of our systems, use our tender to go back and forth, not have to pay for dockage. So again, it's about kind of keeping your costs down, keeping things simple. With the electric motors, if something happens and the electric motor goes out, you're basically taking 4 bolts, removing the electric motor and putting in a new one. Gone are the days of having to spend 2 days of labor just to get to a certain part. Obviously, with the diesel hybrid electric, you're still going to have the diesel engines, but they're not going to be used as much. We have a client in Norway that's a handicapped gentleman that bought a Greenline, just fully electric, no diesel motors on there. And his routine is to go out every day. He swims like 30 minutes. And over 7 years, I think he put 12 hours on his motor, like on the generator, I think, because he had a backup generator, and every hour was on the electric motor. And these things can go, you know, as you know, tens and thousands of hours without having to be changed or replaced.
So Eddie, I'm wondering, I think there's a huge opportunity for somebody who might want to get in, because like these fiberglass boats, most of them, like fiberglass is going to last thousands of years on its own. Yeah. Right. So these shells are going to hang around. I think there's a huge opportunity to convert some of the older boats to some of this new technology that you're describing. And at the same time, though, some of the bigger engine manufacturers, without taking any names, have sort of, I understand, have already made deals with boatyards where like they can't put this stuff into older boats. It has to go into a brand new boat. Why do you think that is? Because you said like everybody's working together, and doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the 600-pound gorillas that run everything, my montage is always, you're either first to market or you're the best, right? So we all know who the best is, right? So when these players enter the market, we all know their fan base, they have unlimited budgets, you know, for all intents and purposes. So these smaller companies, and especially one of my favorite things are the electric outboards. I think that's really going to be the major future of boats, especially as far as lake boats and as far as refits. And that's another reason why I came to Yacht Sales International, because we are starting to refit boats. We're in the process of being able to take out those old Detroit diesels. Yes, it's more expensive. Yes, the initial cost is more expensive than swapping out, you know, Detroit diesels for another name brand engine manufacturer. But you got to look at what are your fuel costs, you know, how much are you going to save over the life of this boat? Because like you said, the shell, the bones of the boat are fine. The Browards that are still out there that were built in the 80s and 90s, hulls, those aluminum hulls or fiberglass hulls, some of them are in great shape. It's just the technology. And so I think, and I agree with you, that over the next few years, you will see a lot of, especially the bigger boats, I think, start going to this, especially as costs come down on batteries and technology and propulsion systems. But yeah, that's going to be a big change, is going to be the refit business. And, speaking with the electric outboards, whether it's Flux, Evoy, Vision Marine Technologies, Torqeedo, basically you can replace a lot of these outboards. And I know weight's an issue, so it's not like a one shoe fits all, but you'll be able to really eliminate a lot of these gas outboards with the electric outboards. And I know that like California, I believe, they're going to be banning gas engines probably in lakes in the next 20 years or less. I know Europe.
Sure, yeah. 2030.
Yeah, 2030, exactly. Yeah. And Europe's already doing that. They're eliminating the gas and the diesel engines in some of the canals and stuff. So whether we want it or not, it's here. Whether you want to embrace it or not, it's up to you. But it's something that we're not going away from at this point. To me, hydrogen is just a little too on the forefront, especially as far as infrastructure goes. It's not like you have a hydrogen filling station down the street. Even with electric boats, I'm working with companies to lay the infrastructure for electric charging stations, even though you can plug in your electric boat in any 30 amp single phase pedestal at your dock. It kind of gives destination. So if you have an electric boat, you want to go to lunch, you plug it into a supercharger. In 30 minutes, you go from 20% to 100%, or about 80%, I should say. And then you have your lunch, you have your drinks, and you go back on boating. So we're trying to make it friendly. So when people first got Teslas, it's like, oh, this is awesome. Well, where the hell do I recharge it?
Yeah.
And that's always going to be a lagging feature. You know what I mean? But I think the more people are opening their eyes to say, all right, we're doing this, with the other bigger manufacturers of engines, I'm sure they've been working on this behind closed doors for a little while, but there's no need for them right now, in my opinion, to go all in on this, because, we're not going to get rid of the gas engine, the internal combustion. We're never going to get rid of it. We might limit it. We might, reduce the number of them, but there's always going to be a need for it, especially in America. And yes, I am American, but us Americans love, I got 6 engines, yes, this is 6 oil changes. And look how fast that can go. And I'm wasting a bleep ton of money, and I don't care. And there's people like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But then there's also people that are like, hey, I want to get into boating, but I want to be environmentally friendly. Okay, that's cool. Or, hey, I want to get into boating, but man, my wife or my husband just hates the smell of diesel, hates how it's always rumbling. I think the people that are doing these electric boats and technology are trying to just open the door for new boaters to come in, or seasoned boaters to say, all right, hey, I'm with it. I'm ready to make a change. I'm ready to help out. Like if everyone does a little bit, then we can all make a lot of big changes. But we all got to do something and make just that effort towards it, especially solar. I know a lot of people are questioning solar, but again, sorry to talk about Greenline, but that's the company I represent. But they do a phenomenal job. Even Alva Yachts, built out of Turkey, a German company that's competing with Silent catamarans, where it's an all-electric power catamaran. The solar panels are really doing a good job, and they're really bringing their weight, so to speak, as far as power. And that's really enabling a lot of these boats to go further distances. And again, a lot of space on the boat that might not be a place for you to sit, stand, lay down. It's just open space to throw a solar panel on there. You know what I mean? There's, it's free power, so to speak. So
tell us more about this boat though. For example, something that you have in mind is like a 40-foot like cruiser with does it have sails? Does it also have panels?
So Greenline, for example, it's made in Slovenia, German technology, and built in Slovenia with a factory. But they make a 40-foot coupe. They make a 45 fly, 48 coupe. So they have options from a 40-foot boat all the way up to a 65-foot boat. And then Alva is a newer company that, has just been producing some boats the last few years that are just coming out now. And they're basically a catamaran that has basically every possible open area covered with solar panels, right? But it's not tacky. It doesn't look ridiculous. Like, and trust me, I was at Con, I was at New I've seen some interesting ideas, and I'm not going to poo-poo on any of them because they work, and it's not one shoe for everybody. But you're able to, on a catamaran, just because of the sheer size of these, they're making a 90, I believe a 73 and a 60. And there's just so much square footage of space that you can put solar panels. So that way you can get enough power and you can get enough juice to run the boat fully electric, not plugging in, not fueling up with fuel. You know what I mean? Especially if you're going to go do, the loop is obviously a little bit difficult, the catamaran, because you got to use commercial lanes. But, if you want to go to the Bahamas and you're, live aboard and I can work from home, well, you don't have to plug in. As long as you have sunshine and you have a water maker, then you got water, you can catch your fish, you got sunlight. So, people want to be sustainable, self-sustained. They want to be able to go somewhere and not be tied to, okay, I can only go this distance.
So are we talking like unlimited mileage at this point?
I wouldn't say unlimited. The way I tell my customers is think of it as a piggyback situation. Now, some of these boats, you don't need generators. Some customers put them in as a backup, even though they might never turn them on as a redundancy. But basically, you go, if you leave the dock, you're 100% charged, and your range is limited. On the green lines, for example, I believe you can go, it's like 9 knots, at full speed on full electric. And again, it's hard to give exact numbers because it depends how many air conditioning units are on, how many TVs are on, how many lights. The more you pull, the less range you have. The more you shut down, the further the range goes. But we've had a client go almost 1,300 miles by just piggybacking, saying, so I'm going to go electric until my batteries get to 20%. Then I'm going to turn on the diesel motors, drive 30 minutes, get my batteries to 80%, shut that down, drive till they're empty. So if you piggyback like that, you can go an incredible distance. So as long as you have enough fuel to run your diesel engines for 30 minutes to charge your batteries is, if you're on the go, then you can go a hell of a long way.
Ahoy, investors! Are you on the lookout for a unique opportunity to invest in a thriving industry? Set your sights on ShipShape, the innovative platform connecting boat and yacht owners with top-notch marine service providers. Our team is committed to revolutionizing the marine repair and refit market in North America. But we can't sail these seas alone. With your support, we can enhance our platform and create a significant impact in the industry. Don't let this exciting investment opportunity drift away. Contact us today to learn more about joining our voyage. Reach out to us at info@shipshape.pro.
I got to ask you, right? In marine, it seems like there's small businesses and then there's big businesses and there's really nothing in between. And having been a part of a ton of venture capital groups within the blue economy, almost every single meeting, there's some new electric boat company that's coming around. And as you already brought up, some of these big players are now starting to get into it. With the sheer amount of people that are trying to enter and do electric boats, how do you foresee that going down? I mean, are they all going to get eaten up by the larger players, or a bunch of them are going to die on the vine? There's only going to be a few people that make it. What's that going to look like?
And this is something I've talked to my brother about. This is my opinion. This is not any type of standard, but I think that because of COVID, and I was one of the, and I'm not a fortune teller, and usually any crisis in the world always crushes the yachting industry. Always. The sales tax, or the luxury tax of 1991, 92, destroyed my dad's business. It's destroyed a lot of boat manufacturers' businesses. So I think that because of the way COVID was, and because of the pandemic, and people bought boats, had nothing to do, all these factory slots got filled up, right? And I think that opened the door to a lot of lesser known manufacturers, lesser known brands, because especially in America, we don't want our boat in 12 months. We want it 12 minutes ago. You know what I mean? So to have to tell someone, yeah, hey, give me a deposit, and in 4 years, your boat will be here. Oh, sweet. So that, opens the door for some of these smaller manufacturers to say, hey, I got a boat right now. You want to buy this boat? It's a good boat. Most of all these boats they're all pretty good. There's not like any of them are like garbage that I'm aware of. But I think as the economy, and I'm not saying the economy shrink is, I'm not scared yet, because the way I look at it again is as long as these factories are full, people are buying boats, they're building boats. So once in, say, for example, and I love Intrepid, I love Ken Clinton, but it's like, if Intrepid all of a sudden is like, hey, we have a ton of build slots available, then it's like, crap. Now, we're going to see the economy slow down, people stop buying newer boats. But as far as the electric boats, the thing is this: Green Line has spent well over a decade working out the unimaginable kinks, all the downsides, the problems, and they have a fine-tuned product. Everyone has been saying for the last 4 years, next boat show, we're going to have this hybrid electric, we're going to have this. And guess what? It's still just Green Line. I don't see any other boat. I know Hinckley is doing, I think, an electric jet drive picnic boat. They're like the closest ones even doing something on a bigger full production scale. So Green Line has such a head start on a lot of these companies. Not to say that they're the only one, but they are one of the best as far as what they've done. And people like Exshore, Voltari, Candela, people that are these smaller companies that are coming out, getting funding, getting these electric boats, different styles. They're sharing information, they're helping each other out, and they're just giving other options to boaters. Not everyone, like I said, wants to buy a center console. Not everybody wants to buy this. Not everybody likes a certain brand of motor. So you're basically opening the doorway for some of these manufacturers to get in. But I certainly will see that you're going to lose sight of some of these smaller brands once the bigger companies start slowing down and people are able to get the boat they want instead of a boat that they can get now. I think there's going to be some adjustment there.
Cool.
And like, for example, and again, I'm not talking negative towards anything, but you have a company that does a diesel outboard, which is great. And it took a decade and all this stuff to get them to that point. But it's like, unfortunately, now we have electric outboards. And yes, there'll be a need for a diesel outboard versus a gas, this and that. But now that you have electric outboards, it's like, I see a death sentence even on the diesel outboards, just because you're going to jump from gas and go right to what you want, which is electric, silent. And these boats will get the range that you need. So for example, Exshore, right? So we did 6 sea trials on an Exshore with, I think, 10 people on board. They were 1-hour boat rides. We went fast, slow, did the whole sea trial thing. And we spent 7 hours on the water and drained 80% of the battery. So most of these are day boats, where, hey, I want to go to the sandbar. I want to go to the restaurant. I want to do this. Some of these smaller boats, you're not going to take it to the Bahamas. We're not there yet, especially with the charging and infrastructures over there. But the bigger boats are getting to that point where you're going to be able to make those journeys because of solar, because battery technology. And, the other thing that I'm sure we'll get to is everyone's always afraid of, I get this question a lot. Wait, you're telling me you have batteries on a boat in the water? It's like, well, boat has a battery, and let's just start there. I mean, obviously there are both batteries, but these companies they're putting the lithium-ion batteries in, I call them bomb-proof case boxes, they're IP certified, so they can be submerged in water and brought back up and started up. So these fires, these other things, a lot of this stuff is human error. Charging something too long, or maybe there's a country that manufactures things that just aren't as high quality and that gives out. So it's not the batteries that are causing issue. I know that's a big fear with people, but the more people are educated about how easy some of this stuff is, the better. Now, with these other manufacturers, Green Line's one of them. I think everyone does it now. And again, I started with my joy of electric boats, really started with Exshore, but they have everything on the cloud. So when you buy a boat and sell a boat, you got to do your survey, and everyone wants to know what's wrong with the boat. Or when you buy a car, you'll always ask, hey, are those highway miles or are those city miles? You know what I mean? So with these electric boats, you're able to have all the maintenance, all these sensors, everything in the cloud. So when you sell a boat, you can find out how fast this guy went for the duration, what
That's a little scary.
So there's no line. You're right. Yeah, no, I never went faster than 50. It's like, well, on May 5th, you went 65 miles an hour for 2 hours. What happened there? So there's, you know what I mean? So you're keeping everybody honest, but that's good. You know what I mean? It's not something that we're trying to hide. It just makes it easier for the customer.
But there are also
aren't they announcing remember, what was that 10 knot speed limit thing?
Yeah, the whole right whale thing.
I'll tell you, there's, who's going to go around that. There's a couple companies. Candela is doing the foiling. There's a company called Sea Bubbles, which is really cool. It's a foiling boat that looks like a cat, like, how would you say it? Almost not like a taxi cab, but it's like a people mover. And with some of these foiling boats that are electric also, you can get around the speed zones, or the wake zones, not the speed zones, but the wake zones. But, as far as the whales and stuff and the right whales, and I just watched that documentary, a lot of that, I think, are the big container ships or the bigger ships. But hey, and I mean this in a nice way, there are people, like in war, people die, there are things that happen. I'm not saying I want any animal to die, of course not, but there will always be accidents. But most people, they're not really going, I don't think, that fast unless they got to go to the bottom. Because even then, people are going not that fast, because why? You're just going to waste fuel, waste money unless you need to get there. But I think the more technology comes with autonomous and other sensors, we're going to be able to detect things with sonar and stuff, and maybe be a little bit more avoidable of such disasters.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about is like ludicrous mode on a Tesla, and it's almost like with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, exactly.
and that X-Shore, well, the coolest thing when I was first on that, they, instead of having throttles, they have a dial, and basically you can go. I could be off a little bit, but I think it's like 0 to 30 miles an hour, like in under 4 seconds. So you will fall off the back of that boat. It's like a Tesla. It's just straight power. Volpari, same thing. I think they're up to like dang near 70 miles an hour maybe, and they have like a wakeboard boat, like and it's all electric. And again, so now you're going to be able to get people to ski and wakeboard, because it's so good to do that, because the amount of torque and power is so instant that even someone of my size can get up on a ski real quick.
The ski doesn't care. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta ask, right? It's like, when we start talking about the maintenance of these things, on one side of it, you're like, oh, there's not a whole lot of moving parts. You don't need to do oil changes. It's pretty simple. It's interconnected in the cloud. But, such things like Candela with the hydrofoil, like kind of the propeller is attached to the foil. Some of this stuff, I question how any of this would be maintained. Like if there was a problem with that, how exactly do these companies handle that, right? How do they handle maintenance?
Yeah, most of the time you're going to have either your authorized dealer down here, someone who's going to be doing the service and warranty. For certain companies, if the problem's really big, they're going to, if it's under warranty, they'll have to fly someone out there and do it. But I guess instead of having your engine blow out, you might have a foil hit something. And I don't know as much about the foiling. I went to the Candela factory and went on one of their boats, which was really cool. That concept is cool. I know some people are timid about like, oh, you're going to fall off. Like what happens if you hit something? But they're a lot safer than people think. But again, there's nothing that's going to be maintenance free or guilt free, so to speak. You're always going to have some potential issues. Most of these electric boats, if they're just electric, you're going to have your electric motor, you have your batteries, you're going to have your inverter, your heat exchanger, your house batteries, and your X-Shore has like an aqua drive system, but like that's it. The engine room is so much simpler. Everything is component based. So you don't have to like remove the engine to get to the generator. You don't have to do this. It's very plug and play. Something's not working. If the inverter's not working, the heat exchanger, you take it out, put one in, send that one off to get fixed and sent back. So it's going to be a lot easier for the average person. I would say the average person who's maybe not as technologically advanced to be able to maintain the boat. Green Line, X-Shore, these boats, to get to the engine room isn't always easy because they don't want you messing around in there because of water corrosion. So they make it difficult. Like, yes, you can lift up the floor to get to it, but the idea is, hey, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. We can tell when a problem shows up. We monitor your boat. They have watches now where you can control the boat. You can shut the boat down. If someone steals it, you can put, speed controls on it for your kids. So everything is just making it simplified. So that way, instead of having 50 components in an engine room, you're going to have 10. And obviously, the bigger the boat, you're going to have more systems, different things, but it's just trying to eliminate. And the way I look at it, you're really eliminating your generator, which is, if you go to the Bahamas for 7 days and you're running your air conditioning 24 hours a day for 7 days, when you come back, you got to, if you want to follow the book, you got to get your generator serviced. So eliminating that generator, now you don't have to have that service every 200 hours, which could be every couple months, depending on how much you use the boat.
So, when it comes to kind of the selling of these boats and resale value, right? Obviously diesel is much more, people like the diesel boats more than they do gas, but how do you see kind of resale value with some of these electric boats?
Well, that's funny you mentioned that. My boss, Udo, just did a seminar with 90 surveyors a couple months ago to talk about, because the industry is going to have to rewrite the way surveyors survey electric boats, the batteries, the inverter,
I like it.
The coolant. You know what I mean? You can't avoid it. Now, if there's a couple surveyors out there and they're smart, they're going to focus on this and say, all right, I'm going to be the industry expert. I know what to do. I know what to look for. There's other people that are going to be like, I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. I don't want it. There's plenty of boats out there. I don't need to do this. So it's something that is a little bit resistant, but it's also like, all right, how are we going to write this book? Who is the expert? Who is the person writing this book? Ma'am, Sam's is this something we're going to kind of, in my opinion, it's going to kind of be a work in progress. So that's something that I don't think scares people yet because the technology is still new. So a lot of stuff's, still under warranty with some of these boats, obviously not the ones from 5 or 6 years or older. But basically, my selling point to clients is, listen, when you sell this boat, every buyer wants what? They want to buy a 2-year-old boat, that's broken in, that has warranty, it has this, right? Well, you're not, when you buy your boat, you're buying it at 2 years old. You have it for 18 to 36 months. All of a sudden, now that's a 5-year-old boat, right? And no one wants to buy that 5-year-old boat with 2,000 hours on the engines with 1,000-hour service coming up. So this is a way to say, all right, you want to own a boat. You don't want to spend an arm and a leg on these things, on the services. And, if problems arise, it just gives an alternative. So the costs are lower. Maintenance is lower. You're spending less on fuel. There's no more oil changes unless you have a redundant generator, so to speak. And so you can either spend more money on a nicer boat or save more money. But this basically allows more people to enter the boating market, especially if they're tech geeks, tech freaks, and they love this kind of stuff. It's perfect. This is where technology is going. And now they're applying it to one of man's long lost, one of something in our DNA. It's like anytime you're on a boat, it just feels right. Like you're exploring, like you're going somewhere. And so this just...
Even if you're not going somewhere. Yeah. Even if you're going to come back to exactly the same dock, there's something different about it. Yeah.
Right. And it gives people different, options. So if I have a pontoon boat up in the Great Lakes, to me, that's a perfect boat to put some electric outboards on. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that way you're not spending money, you're charging the boat. And when we charge the X-Shore, and again, I know I mentioned X-Shore a lot because that was the first company I kind of did some work with. We ran a test to charge your boat from, I always say 20 to 80%, or, you never want to get it below 20%. You try not to, but to fully charge it, I think was like $13 on your FPL bill, your Florida Power and Light bill, plugging it in.
Nice.
Most of these, some of these boats, if you have like a regular single phase 30 amp, it's going to take probably 12 hours to charge. Use the boat on Saturday, charge it on Monday, use it on Tuesday, but it's $13. Yes. We're not idiots. Fossil fuels are creating the power to charge your electric boat, but instead of you're paying $13 on your power bill, instead of going to the fuel dock and paying $6 a gallon times 150 gallons for that same period.
Well, the marinas are going to wisen up to that as well, for sure. But so the thing is, Eddie, it was a great chat, I think, so far, and we've identified so many different opportunities that people, entering this new electric revolution can sort of, tap into. Just to sort of recap for some of our listeners, and maybe throw in some tips as well, just what are the top 2 or 3 things where you see the most opportunity in electric propulsion in the next 5-10 years?
Electric outboards is one of my personal loves and passions, I think, because, whether you have a tender on a super yacht, a center console, as these batteries get longer charge and more power, yes, those boats are going to be able to, the engines are going to be able to push heavier boats. So I see the electric outboard market as something to really keep your eye on. I think Flux Marine personally is the most technologically advanced company. I know Torqeedo's been doing it a long time, but on the kind of the smaller level. But I think Flux is really, you're going to see some big things coming from Flux, in my opinion, in the next few years. And then as far as, electric boats, what I love about some of these, and again, now with Greenline and Alva, these are more your 40-foot to 90-foot boats. So when still going back to the center console idea with some of this, being in the super yacht industry, having an electric boat as a tender, to me, eliminates the need for almost 2 or 3 boats, because you're able, like on the X-Shore, you're able to change out the seating on the boat. There's 2 horizontal rails, and you can basically pull the chairs or the tables in and out, have it empty. You're able to basically manipulate the boat in 15
more modular.
Yeah, that's exactly. Cool. And so you can have an electric tender and you charge it right on board with your generator. So if a client wants to go wakeboarding, you pull that boat out, it's charged, you go wakeboarding for 3-4 hours, you come back, they eat lunch, now you want to go fishing. Perfect. Boat's charged up in a half hour, you go out, you go fishing for 3 hours, come back, and now you want to do a sunset cruise, you can do that. So to me, I see the super yacht industry really taking hold of the electric boats as far as tenders go. And then I still think Greenline is the boat to pay attention to. You'd be surprised at boat shows, people are like, I haven't heard of you guys. Well, we've been around 10 years, and obviously word takes time to travel, and people are resistant to change, as you know. So I think as Greenlines, and, when you'll see the Alva, and there's also Candela, Mila, Eldorado, there's a few Seabells, a few different brands that are going to be coming out, but you're going to just be able to see that people are going to be using their boats on a more day-to-day basis, not longer trips. And I think people just like the fact that it's just a different experience of boating. It's quiet, it's not noisy, it's unique. People love to be looked at, ooh, what's that? That's why these boats are certain colors and have, 50 engines on the back and all this. People want to be noticed. And now you're going to be noticed more for being quiet instead of being loud. And I think people are going to be just gravitating towards that, especially with our government forcing us to go that direction. So, in a good way for our industry.
Right the way. Cool. So where can people find out about what you do, Eddie? So
you can either reach me out. I'm on social media. I think it's Electric Eddy Broker. I should know that. I'm sorry. Or just my name, Eddie_Denison. Yacht Sales International is the company I work for. Like I said, we represent Fjord, Greenline, Alva, a company called Rick that's built by Fjord. And so you can reach me, phone number 954-816-3695, or email eddie@yachtsalesinternational.com. And like I said, we have boats now in Fort Lauderdale that we can test drive you on. You can look at it. We should be getting our first Alva Power Cat, I believe, in the spring. And that's going to blow people away. The fit and finish on these boats, they are offering a hydrogen cell technology. They are offering electric. They are offering electric hybrid propulsion systems. And so look for Greenline, look for Alva, just because you're going to have, the great loopers, people that do the loop. The Greenline is the most amazing boat for that. It is so easy to control, especially when you have the electric motors on.
Joysticks, right?
Yeah, you can sit there. If you have a 5-knot current, a 10-knot wind, you always see people in gear, out gear, in gear, out gear at the bridge. With electric motors, it's not a dynamic positioning system, but it's basically allows you to have a certain amount of power. So you can basically keep your motors in reverse, pushing against the current and just staying right there. So it's a lot easier to maneuver, a lot easier in tight spaces, coming into the boat show. I mean, it was a bleep show this year at Palm Beach, but with the Greenlines, it was so easy to maneuver in tight spaces just because you have instant power. You don't have to wait 2 seconds for that to kick in with the gears. You eliminate a lot of that need and make driving a boat more fun and more enjoyable. And like I said, less maintenance. That's the one thing people hate. Oh God, what do I do? My maintenance on the boat, this and this. So people are trying to eliminate that as well. And I think companies like, Xshore and Greenline have, Greenline has really paved the way. Xshore is coming up on, again, they're building two totally different style of boats. But again, it gives you the option of that center console or that boat with 2 or 3 cabins. And without, if you went with the fully electric version, then you can even add an extra stateroom in some of these boats because you don't need the 2 engines. Everything's smaller. So it's getting more compact and you're able to have more livable space on these boats.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, Eddie, it was great talking to you and fascinating to hear what the scene is with electric. Clearly, you have some of the most knowledge that I've run into thus far when it comes to it.
Well, I appreciate that for sure. And definitely glad you guys had me on. And if there's anything you guys need in the future, I'm, always available and always loving to talk about this type of industry. And hopefully we'll be selling a lot more electric boats. And maybe next year we can kind of recap and see how much the market's grown. But I can tell you from experience, since Cannes Boat Show of last year or the most recent one, I would say the amount of interest, the amount of publicity electric boats has, it's like 10x. So it's finally here. People are finally doing it. Infrastructure is on its way. Boats are here. Boats of different sizes, categories, propulsion systems. It's all about giving that client what they want, right? Because not everyone wants a yellow boat. So maybe I want a blue boat with this. You don't want the customer to fit into what you're selling them. You want to give them the options to say, okay, you're only using the boat to go fishing. Perfect. You're using the boat to do the loop, going to the Bahamas, just going to the sandbar. So there's different type of boats. Not every boat's for you. Maybe a hybrid's better for you. Maybe all electric is best because you're on a lake and you're stuck and you're never going to be able to get out of that lake. So why do you need gas motors if you're never going to use a boat more than 4 to 5 hours a day? So it just gives people those options. And I'm just glad that I'm able to talk a little bit about it. And like I said, I'm trying to create that niche of Electric Eddy, which, it's kind of cheesy, but it sticks. And hopefully I can help pioneer a lot of this to the industry, because I think it's just the smart way to go. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, climate activist, or climate denier, it doesn't matter. But we all know that we need to do better as humans. We're like a parasite on this earth, I understand. So even the little things that we do will make big changes later. Rome wasn't built in a day. Neither was the yachting industry. Neither was the electric boating industry or the car industry. So everything takes time and people need to realize that. But at the same time, understand that we have a common goal of all using boats and not destroying the earth or the fish. So our kids and our grandkids have a place to use these boats and to have jobs and fun.
Absolutely. Well, great having you on the show, Eddie.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it as well, guys. Thank you very much. And it's fun to be on a podcast that my brother was on. So now we can compare
yeah, chat
see
about
who
it.
gets more downloads for Thanksgiving dinner. Little rival.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for being on, man.
Check back every Tuesday for our latest episode. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to shipshape.pro.